morning, it is 8 o'clock. Coming up, you could be facing a hefty fine if you use the wrong man with a van. More details after the news with Mark Summers.
Good morning. We're being asked by the Environment Agency to avoid becoming accidental criminals and asked to check businesses before using them to get rid of our rubbish. It comes after reports in Essex that waste isn't being taken away properly, that it could be fly-tipped by men with white vans who don't have the correct licences. The Environment Agency's waste crime engagement specialist, Peter Leonard, says it's vital that people check before using their services in order to protect the county.
If you're doing this, then you're actually helping to protect the countryside of Essex as well. And if it does get fly tipped, then it's usually the council that have to clear it up. Again, they have to pay for it. So by doing this, you're not only helping the environment, but you're also helping the local authority and the council, and also hopefully stopping sort of the bigger and bad and nasty waste crime.
There'll be more
Have
on
you
this
used a
next
man with a van to take your rubbish away? Did you check their credentials first? 0800 111 40 41. If you have used one of these services before, how did it work for you? Because there are concerns this morning that adverts on social media are leading to a rise in fly tipping, because some of us are using businesses which don't have the right licences to get rid of the rubbish. Bosses at the Environment Agency say that means it's not got rid of properly and even runs the risk of fly tipping. And the problem is, if you see some of these adverts on social media and you respond to them, you're not sure if you're getting someone who is legitimate. And of course, this could see you footing the bill. You could be hit with a £400 fine, even though someone else has actually dumped the rubbish. So if you've got any experience of using some of these services and tips that you can share with other people in Essex, let me know. Michael Rowan runs the Romford Van Man removal company. Justin Carlson is the boss at Colchester Man with a Van and also Colchester Waste Collection. Morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Now, I should stress you guys are both very much legitimate and do everything properly. And hopefully you can tell us how to avoid falling into a trap of using someone who isn't doing it properly. So, Michael, tell us about your business first off.
Yeah, well, I run a man and van company and I do waste disposal, but I have a waste disposal licence, which you need if you want to pay to get rid of waste, because without one you can't use a lot of refuse sites, so you need to have one.
And how do you get that? Do you have to apply to the council, or what do you have to do to get one of those?
You have to apply for it, and then you have to renew it every 3 years.
And then you can take your rubbish to, like, a local authority site, or do you go to a special site?
Local authority you can take it to if they do commercial waste, or a commercial waste site, but you do need that first before they'll let you use their services.
So what sort of things are you able to take away from people? If I wanted to hire you today, Michael, what could you take away for me?
I do sort of garage clearances, house clearance. I don't really do garden waste and rubble and stuff like that, because I have to keep my vans sort of cleanish. But apart from that sort of stuff, anything really. OK,
let's bring Justin in. What sort of things do you take away, Justin?
Yeah, similar to Michael, really, house clearances, garage clearances. But we do builders' waste also and garden clearances, because we have cage tipper vans that can cater for this.
And is it quite a constant demand from people wanting your services, Justin?
Yes, I mean, the phone doesn't stop ringing, to be honest. But it all comes down to price at the end of the day. Being a commercial waste carrying company, we are slightly expensive. So if we quote £100, £120 to collect and dispose of a sofa, and they phone somebody on social media that do it for £20, then it's obvious where that sofa is going to end up.
How concerned are you that these sorts of adverts are appearing on social media and people not necessarily realising are paying people in good faith to take their rubbish away, not knowing that it's not necessarily being taken away properly? How worried are you, Justin?
Well, I've seen so much of it in the coastal area, especially since lockdown. But I think it's just a matter of educating the public well enough. They need to be well enough informed that if you don't ask a company for a waste licence number and check their details with the Environment Agency, that, you know, they are going to end up being an accidental criminal, and then they are the ones that pay for the fine.
What are you seeing then? You say you're seeing so much of it. You're seeing so many dodgy adverts going out, or rubbish being tipped out?
Social media, obviously is the prime. Yes, mainly social media adverts for men with vans that advertise for cheap rates. But the countryside in Colchester, you can't drive anywhere now without seeing waste dumped in it or a farmer's field. And the poor farmer, if it's in his field, he's liable to the cost of getting it disposed of. But yeah, the countryside of Colchester, you can't drive anywhere without seeing fly tipping now.
It's awful, isn't it? And Michael, let's bring you back in. What are you seeing in Romford? Have you noticed more of these sorts of adverts cropping up?
Yeah, and what people are starting to do now is they photograph their waste and then they say, I need a man and van to take this away. And then there's a bidding war of comments underneath, and I think they generally go for the lowest quote, and they go for that. And that's obviously just going to be fly tip somewhere, because they can't afford to pay for it for the money they charge to dispose of it. So they must be putting it somewhere.
And I suppose some people genuinely don't realise that's what's going to happen, but some people maybe do, but don't necessarily think it's going to come back on them. But the reality is, Michael, it does come back on you, doesn't it? You can end up getting done yourself and fined yourself for it.
Yeah, you can. If they find anything with your name and address on it, then you're liable for it. So I think people just, they don't want to pay nothing no more. There's always someone out there that will do something for nothing and not do it properly.
Is it quite expensive to get these licences that you guys have to have?
No, it's not that expensive, really.
Oh, so there's a lot of people who could do this legitimately quite easily without shelling out a load of money.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do it for a short period of time, maybe.
Right.
They might get over the local tips and get away with it for a while, sort of sneaking in. But you can't go over there all the time. They've got cameras that check your number plate and stuff. So they might do it for a while, think it's easy money, but then the local tips will stop them going in, and then they'll have a van load of rubbish, and they'll just have to they can't pay to get rid of it, so they have to fly tip it. And they may just carry on doing that, really, once they realise it's easy money.
Around your way, you heard Justin there saying, see it in the countryside everywhere in Colchester. What are you seeing? You seeing an increase in fly tipping too?
Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, they're even throwing it in parks and everything.
What sort of things? What is it? Bags of rubbish or bigger items? What sort of things do you see?
Well, someone put a photo up the other day, and what they've done is they pulled up on a bridge, and then they chucked loads of furniture over the bridge into a stream. So there were sofas, microwaves, all household waste, all just laying in this stream. It looked terrible. So they're just putting it anywhere.
And that reflects badly on you guys, because you are advertising, but you have the licences and you're doing everything above board. But that kind of reflects badly on you as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's a battle. People think we're all the same, but we're actual proper companies. They wouldn't dream of doing anything like that.
Justin, you were speaking then as well. I was sort of saying it kind of gives you guys a bad name, doesn't it? If you're doing everything above board and then the minority are not. I mean,
it damages the reputation of man with vans and waste companies that do it correctly, because you looked at as if when you're collecting waste, that's people think that's going to end up in the field somewhere. But yeah, I mean, it does damage the reputation of legit companies for sure.
What do you think, Justin, needs to happen then, or what could happen to make this better, to try and stop this sort of thing happening?
I think I mentioned earlier that we need to educate the public. They're not well enough informed that they need to ask for a waste licence number and check with the Environment Agency that there is a legit company that are collecting your goods. Because once we collect the goods, being a licensed company, we then take ownership of those goods and we're responsible for them. But if somebody collecting them who aren't licensed, that stuff still belongs to you wherever it ends up.
And I guess you'd say the same, wouldn't you, Michael? Educating the public's probably the first place to start?
It is, yeah. Everyone needs to know. They need to check people's licences to make sure it's being disposed of properly.
Do you think not enough is done to raise awareness around that then? Because I have to say I wouldn't personally know what to do and where to check. So do you just go on the Environment Agency website to check that licence number, do you?
Yeah, you can check their name as well. I think you can get it from that. And I mean, I've got a card with mine, you can get a card to show people. I've also got it on my website where there's a link. You can just click it and it takes you straight to their site and shows that it's a legit company. So there is ways of doing it.
Well, thank you both for talking to us this morning and educating us a little bit as well. That's Michael Rowan, you just heard there, from the Romford Van Man removal company. And before that, Justin Carlson, the boss at Colchester Man with a Van and Colchester Waste Collection. So interested to hear from you. A couple of things, really. Have you used one of these types of services in the county before? And did you do the relevant checks? What was that process like? Was it quite straightforward? And what do you think needs to happen to stop this increase and this sort of bidding wars, as was being outlined there? People putting photos on social media saying, can anyone help me clearing this? A bidding war ensues in the comments underneath. And actually, these are generally people who aren't licensed to take away that waste properly. And if you're doing it ultra cheap, that waste isn't necessarily going to end up in a legitimate place. Might be tipped over a bridge into a stream, as Michael was saying there. Loads of furniture just being dumped off a bridge. And Justin's saying you can't really drive through the countryside in Colchester without seeing piles of rubbish, where clearly someone has, perhaps in good faith, paid someone to take that rubbish away from their home, and then it's ended up being dumped somewhere. 0800 111 40 41 is our number. And it's 8:17.